Hey everyone, welcome to Sum It Up with the Summers. I am Katoya, and this is
Damon.
my wonderful husband. What's our stats?
16 years together, 13 years married.
Yes. And,
Let them know.
oh my gosh, 16. What? That's a long time. 16 years.
Long time.
So, anyway, we are so glad y'all are tuning into this podcast. We are excited to jump into this topic today. But before we do, as always, we want to say thank you. So, we are going to read a review, and we want you to make sure that you take the time to review as well. We love to hear your feedback, whether it be on Instagram, on YouTube, through a review. Let us know that you're rocking with us. So let's see what we got today.
All right, Apple Podcast review this time comes from J.G. Marty.
Aww.
I think we know who that is.
Yeah, it's not a lot of Martys out there.
Not a lot of Marty's, one of our favorite families here. Great couple, great topics, great podcast. I think that's what it says. Hit me with a dot. I think he was going with the great, right? Rule of 3.
Let's do it.
5 stars.
Great people.
Only. Could be. Simple, straightforward, and says, definitely worth a listen.
We appreciate it.
Listen, man.
That's it.
You ain't got
Definitely worth a listen.
4 words.
4 words and a period.
He had more words in the subject line.
He really did.
Thank you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't got to be nothing crazy.
Nah, just give it up.
Just let us know.
Just give us your 2 minutes
Check
of
it
time.
out.
So we appreciate
We appreciate that. Also, to keep the Instagram love popping off, follow us over on IG, Instagram, Sum It Up Summoners. That's where the conversations are happening. That's where the engagement's happening. That's where the stories are going down, right? Sum It Up Summoners. S-U-M, not S-O-M-E.
No.
Sum it up. Mathematics.
It's a play on our last name, which is Sumner. It is not Sumter. Oh my gosh, I get a Summer. It is Sumner.
That's it.
It is S-U-M.
N-E-R.
Yes, that's
us.
It
is. That's us. Let's get into it here. Today we're talking about speaking for your spouse. Speaking about your spouse.
Yes.
What do you mean with that, David and Katoya?
What do you mean?
We're going to unpack that here. You know,
what do you mean?
We're going to get right into it here. Speaking about your spouse, when you know somebody, when you've been with them for a while, right? 16 years, 13 years. We know each other pretty well, right? We're almost going to hit that halfway mark. We're almost going to hit that been together longer than we've been alive. It's pretty exciting. And so when you're there, sometimes you can feel like you know them fully, right? You can feel like, I know Katoya, I know Damon, right? And that's bittersweet, right? If you've been listening to any of the episodes, we've talked about a variety of topics. But when you feel like you know them, so sometimes you feel like you can speak on behalf of them. Mm-hmm. And that's a slippery slope. Right? It's a fine line, right? And we're going to unpack that more.
Your expectations off. You got low expectations, high expectations. Because you know this person.
I know you.
What you going to do new?
I know her. We ain't going to do this because they don't do that. We ain't going here because he don't do that. Oh, I know if I do this... You know, it's a whole bunch of things that can happen, right?
And to be honest, I'm the one who came up with this topic.
You did?
And then was like, well, what inspired this? And I was like, oh, nothing. But now I'm like, no, it's our argument yesterday.
It's real life, people.
We had a whole argument because I swear he one way and he swear I'm attacking his character because of this one way. And I feel very validated in this. And he's like, I can't believe you would say that. So it's this idea of I know you, so I think I can say what I think and... You know, but then how do you carry that in your relationship? And how do you also share that out? Mm-hmm. What are you sharing out to others about your spouse?
Right.
You know, so have you established that or do you experience this is really the question.
I wonder if even people have talked about this. Like what you feel okay for people to say about you, right? You're talking about your bae, your boo, your SO, significant other, if you're just not joining us here. I'll speak for myself. It is not something that typically, in my experience and from my knowledge of listening and watching, being around couples, where people are like, hey, let's talk about how we talk about each other when we leave out the house. Or even if we're together and we're outside the house. You know what I mean?
It's more of a private thing. So I don't think many people would know what someone says. But the question is, like, have you actually had that conversation? And I think it's important. I think it comes up different.
It comes up different ways,
based on
right?
The person, right? And I think it's a lot to do with based on how the person is. Because I think we are more...
Go ahead,
I want to say prideful, but like we are a little bit more like, don't be saying that about me. Like, don't be,
keep my name out your mouth.
We're a little bit more defensive in that regard. as two people.
Sure.
Like both of us, I would say, are like that.
Sure.
And yeah.
Sure.
Okay, I'm speaking right now. He can say yes or no to that. But
We-
I feel
sometimes we speak for ourselves on this. This is 70 whatever number episode.
yeah,
too.
we do, but normally, I
Normally
guess
we're
it's
like,
okay.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
say that
see?
we can admit that, and I
Yes.
know that I think we can admit that, so I
Yes.
actually feel comfortable saying that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if you're not two people who kind of operate sometimes with a little bit more pride, maybe you ain't had this conversation because it's not a problem.
It's not
for
a
you.
problem for you. Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element of. I think there's also something about relationships. I saw shout out to Idris Elba. You didn't watch with me, but his new movie called The Harder They Fall, right? And in the movie, it's a Western. I'm not going to get into the movie, but he says something in an interview. I think it was at an interview about the movie, and he goes on and says like a lot of people didn't know about his relationship, his marriage, or whatever, right? Just in general, he's like, there's this. I'm gonna butcher it, but he says basically there's this mindset that we don't think privacy is good, right? And so there's an element of things being out in public. Let me post online. Oh, all right, we got to get the birthday pic. Boom. We got to talk about our vacation. Boom, right? And there's this element of privacy. I say all that to say, right, there's an element of as well of like, hey, we don't talk about these things with anybody else but in our house, right, in our relationship. And then there's this element of, or you're talking about this person who doesn't have as much maybe pride about sharing things. So even that's a level of conversation and communication.
You gotta understand that about
you gotta understand about your person. It's just like, they maybe keep more things more close to the vest. Where you're like, oh, I've got 13 best friends and we say everything and anything. It's like, whoa, what are you saying about me?
It's true. And I love the idea of privacy, my counseling journey. But, I had just recently come to that. Like, you don't have to tell everybody everything. I have this core set of friends and I think they should know, like, just about everything. And we were like, but why you got to tell them everything? And I was like, because I want them to tell me everything. And then it was like, but we're adults. Yeah. Like, you don't have to tell everybody everything. And it was just, it like rocked my world. I was like, I guess I could keep it to myself. Like, and the same thing is a protection in your relationship. And I'm saying, like, it's just like protecting someone's image too, right? Like, depending on what you choose to say about them, who you choose to say what about
Speaking
them.
about them.
Like, you have a responsibility in your frustration or even in your disappointment to, what was the first word I said? You have a what? Obligation. I think you said. I think that's what I said.
That's good. That's wrong with that.
But you have an obligation to still protect them, I think, because at the end of the day, you're in a house together. So, being mindful about, the things you choose to say, especially if it's coming off of a frustration or like, oh, here we go again. Now, you do need a place to vent to some people.
Sure.
We've talked about that. But, there is still a level of, like anytime if I ever say anything about Damon because I'm frustrated, I'm going to say, oh, he's such a good guy, though. Like, it's no doubt that I might be frustrated, but I think he's wonderful. It's like, oh, no, he's still wonderful, but he did just get on my nerves yesterday. Well, because we're human, right? He would probably never say something like that because he just doesn't say anything. Keep us positive. Yesterday was not as positive, but that was directly to me in my face. So.
But I think you hit on something that's definitely true about when we're talking about speaking about your spouse, of protecting their image. I think Katura and I both have an understanding and a desire to be a united front in private and in public. And I think when you're talking about speaking for them, there's a context of when they're around and when they're not around, right? And so one thing that also comes to mind is like, maybe you haven't talked about this concept a lot, maybe you have, but like, do you at least have maybe an understanding of those you better nots, right? What that thing 2, 5, 12 things where it's like, we both know I'm not going to bring this up about you outside this house and vice versa. Or even if somebody come to our house, like, I'm not going to talk about this.
This ain't a joke.
This ain't funny. This is one of my insecurities.
Yeah.
Right? I know some things that Katoya has, and vice versa, right? And it's just like, oh, that's not something that's coming off my lips about my wife. You know what I'm saying? And so those you better nots, like, do you at least have an understanding of what those are?
Yeah.
Right? Sometimes I pride myself on And Katoya has a different standard of, which is fine, of censorship. I know in my head confidently if I'm out with strangers, friends, comics, whatever, what jokes I feel will work. I'm reading the room. I'm reading the room, right? But in the front of my head, in the front, I'm like, oh, these are do nots. You better nots. Like, I'm not talking about this. I'm not joking about this, right? So that's just something that when you're talking about speaking about your spouse, protecting the image, being a united front, right? Never going to, disrespect. I'm never going to belittle. I'm never going to speak in a condescending way about Katoya. And so it's just something I think for couples in general, you have to just kind of constantly. I've heard too many times around couples, specifically primarily men folk, who are saying things that I feel like, oh, I don't know if she would be okay with you saying that. And to me, that's, you probably crossed the line of you better not. And I'm just like, you're not gonna hear from me, bro.
If you ain't 100% sure,
you ain't gonna hear that from
because
me.
y'all have talked about it casually, loosely, y'all agree to it, then you probably should not share it, right? Like, just, and it's, I think it's interesting to say like protecting your spouse, but it's kind of like if it ain't hurting you, it's no physical harm, there's nothing that's dangerous or anything like that, then it's just private, and it's okay to have private things in your relationship. Yeah.
Most of our relationships are private, and we share what we want to share.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, I would assume if you've listened to most of our episodes, you probably know us a little bit more than probably kind of some of our friendships, right? Because we have tiers of friends, right? We all do as people, right? Like, we've shared a good bit in 70 episodes. We've shared a good bit with you, right? And so there's an element of that, right? But there's also an element of like, no, this stuff, we don't need to share this, and we won't share this stuff.
There's some dark things about me.
Well,
what? And there's just things that, like, if I became famous and they got out, it could not go great.
I think we all have that.
And what I'm saying is that's not something to joke about. Because we know it.
Yes.
We laugh at it. Because some of it's laughable.
Right.
Some of it's like, you really think like that? And it's, but I got to have a safe space in my relationship to talk about that. Well, Katoya, she think like this. And it's like, well, that's rude. Like, that stays, like, this is pillow talk. This is me and you. Yeah. So just making sure that you are protecting your spouse and the words that you're saying. And, there should, again, counseling, I just recently said that, like, it's one of my most safest places I've ever expressed myself. I mean, she don't know some of the things that I done told Damon, because I don't think she needs to know that. I don't think it's a problem, but it's just something that don't need to get out. Damon always like, what you call me? What was my comedy? I'm the darkest comedy.
Oh, the dark.
I don't know.
Yeah, you should. When we used to stay with our friend, or vice versa, he used to live with us. Nathan Owens, great comic. She was, out of the three of us, she was the darkest comic in the house.
I mean, there were just moments, but anyway, there's nothing for you to be concerned about.
No.
But the point is, I'm throwing myself out there to say, like, there's things that I say, there's discussions that we have, there's all of this, and so you don't need to go, well, Katoya think.
Right. Whoa, wait a minute.
Okay.
I actually was asking what you want for dessert.
We actually said that was controversial between us two, and now you gonna take it to the meeting? We already on two opposite sides of the situation.
You went live with that? Okay.
Well, my wife said.
What's up, y'all?
You went to Simple Solutions on Reddit. You went to the Facebook group and talk about my wife, and I'm posting tag next to you. What is this?
She in the bed asleep. She sleep right now, y'all.
Oh man, that makes me think about the whole situation with, I don't know how to say her name, the baby and Dana Lee, whatever, Tana Lee. But like this idea to like, are you really Instagramming this moment? Right. You on live on this moment being disrespectful? That's something that it was actually good for exposure to see like how lame and the disrespect, and to be called out on it when you thought it was okay. It is not. But it's also to say, like, that is something that y'all need to work through and deal with, and that is not something that needs to, like, be broadcast. So.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to pause here. We're going to pick this up. Quick break.
So I don't really love to cook as the primary cook in this family. However, what I do like is to jazz up the meals when I do cook, right? I'm looking for spices, seasonings, dry rubs. and I found a good place. It is Artisan Dry Goods made by beautiful Briny C. So a little bit of everything to spice up, jazz up your meal. It is a local store right here in Atlanta, but ready to ship out to you all over the world.
Absolutely, and they're legit. I'm gonna be honest with you here. Forbes, The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and Oprah's magazine. And you know Oprah only gonna promote the good stuff. All right, so check them out. Instagram, beautiful Briny C. Make your kitchen better. All right, I'm talking about real good ingredients, urban gardens, local farms. So it's good for your taste buds, good for your body. Check them out, and let's get to the episode. All right, we're back. Check them out, beautiful Briny C. All right, so speaking about your spouse, right? What's okay to share? What's not okay? What's on limits? What's off limits? What's shareable, right? I think when we're talking about this, I think another thing to be in consideration of is maybe there's things that you both laugh about, things that are kind of lighthearted, right? For example, that Katoya brings up, I'm a sweets connoisseur, right? That's kind of a small thing that you can share. No worries here. Damon is, job interest and hobbies and, maybe like anything that I think when you get into like struggles, right? Fears, insecurities, to me, like if that's just private. Like Katoya knows my insecurities. I know her insecurities. That's just private stuff. But if you want to talk about lighthearted stuff about me and Katoya, I want to bring up lighthearted stuff about her, then I think that's all good. Unless your spouse says not. But like I'm speaking for us, like I run another podcast with a couple great comics called 4th and 10. And yeah, I've talked about our relationship in 5 years on that podcast several times, right? But it's things that's been kind of just more surface level. And I think that's it. Where when I'm speaking about Katoya, because she's not in the room, I'm speaking about her. I'm speaking about our relationship. One, we always in the limelight on the positive. That's A. B, she's not in the room. I'm speaking about her. Is speaking about something that is kind of just pretty surface level. It's not going deep, right? And so I think there's that element of that where I'm like, oh, that's, to me, that's fine, right? I haven't said, has anybody text you on the low? Like, girl, I was listening to 4th and 10, and he said that you are afraid of spiders.
First of all, I'm not. Second of all, then I'd be like, why you say that? Be honest. That would be me.
Okay, she is afraid of...
Don't you embellish me for no joke. That would be that conversation.
Very true. Very true.
But, yeah, I do think that the weight of what it is matters. Now, unless this is like a confidant, like a friend,
right,
who's been walking
the inner
with
circle.
You, yeah,
that inner circle we've talked about a few episodes ago.
Yeah, but if they're not there, everybody don't need to know.
No.
I
almost put everybody on a social media level. I keep everybody pretty much on a social media level who's not on that tight inner two circles, and we're just gonna keep it here.
Yeah,
I mean that's what they're doing with me. So why am I giving you all this information if I don't got your information? That's what Katoya was saying earlier to the counselor, right?
Yeah, you need to have some
I told them all that so they could tell me all that.
Yeah. Oh, but y'all didn't tell me all that? Well, then I guess this, I thought differently, man. I thought we were still the friends of 20s.
Yeah.
No, we the friends of almost 40s.
All right.
But then it kind of reversed too. You're like, girl, I don't care. I'm just going to say it all. But, I do think, like, there are tears to it,
There's
right?
tears.
And I think if you haven't had this conversation, you should. But I do think that you've learned the hard way at some point. Where the moment gets serious? It's the moment, the awkward moment when the spouse, you're like, ooh, are they really? You know that are they about to?
Are they about to get to a spat?
Are they about
to get into a spat?
Wait,
you gotta nudge your boo.
Oh, we just hanging out.
Ooh, this was just taboo night.
This is about to go
This was
deep.
wine and categories.
Whoa.
Okay, he brought up her getting fired.
Oh, and how she don't do
that.
So if it has a negative connotation, that's already a red light, okay? The next level is it surface level or is it deep? And then that means that you should let this person speak those things and not you speak them for them or you speak them while they are not in your presence. It's just meant to be things that you're working through and maybe, inner circle knows or whatever, but it's not casual, light conversation. think you were telling me about a conversation you had with
What I say?
a comic who just like gave you all of it.
Oh yeah.
And he was like,
dang, bro. Like
I didn't know we were that close, you know?
Yeah,
but it's like,
he felt so confident.
You safe with me. That's okay, but I hope you ain't being this safe with everybody. Because everybody don't need to know all
that man
this.
don't know my middle name. Man. He told me everything. Buried his soul out.
Dang, this is heavy on your heart today.
Like, okay.
You gotta leave them with something. Now, when somebody do give you all that, you need to come back.
I left it with some encouragement.
There you go.
I left it with some encouragement, you know. But it's interesting. I think there's another piece of it too here. When we talk about different types of people, we've talked about friends a little bit, but even with like parents, our parents, right? And so, hypothetically, depending on your relationship with your parents, how you talk about your spouse, right? With your parents, like either with them present or without them present, right?
Yeah.
I remember, right? I won't have ever said this to you here.
He's about to speak. Let's see if it's right.
If you go back to one of our favorite episodes, which is one of our big concepts, Shakers versus Dwellers. Couture's a shaker. I'm a dweller. But I remember being, we're 21, 22, just newly married, and I'm a hard dweller, and you're a classic shaker, right? And I remember you would get on the phone with your mom, and you're just laughing or whatever, talking about whatever. And I was dwelling. I was like, she better not say nothing about me. Right? Like, I remember those days where I was dwelling so hard, so angry back in my young life.
About me.
Because, there's this, I'll speak for myself.
Well, the situation wasn't even resolved.
Right. It wasn't resolved.
But I was like, I'm not going to sit here and be in silence with you. I'm going to talk to somebody who wants to talk to me.
Right. And so there's this element of how do we talk about our spouses with our parents, not in the midst of conflict, just in general. Let's say you're hanging out with your dad fishing, or you're shopping with your mom, whatever the case may be. I think that's important too, right? Because parents hold a special place to our hearts. Yeah. If we got a decent relationship.
And I really believe that I don't want this conversation to say like you shouldn't be sharing, hard things.
Sure.
Because you should be sharing hard things, but you just need to be mindful who you're sharing them with,
how,
and how. Like, hopefully somebody who will come back and speak the same truth about you, right? Like, where you're not going, right? Am I right? Like the Simple Solution episode where it's just like...
She crazy, right?
She crazy, right? Like, you want them to side with you. It's not necessarily a side. It's this is kind of what took place. And you want someone to say, well, I know him too. Or I know her too. And I don't think she meant it that way. Like, don't just tell somebody to feed your frustration. Because that's not healthy.
When we're talking about speaking about our spouse, like, am I tearing down or am I building up?
Yeah.
Like, it's even in the midst of frustration, even in the midst of conflict, even in the midst of joy, right? And elation. Like, if I'm speaking about my spouse, and definitely I would doubt you would do it probably in the presence of them, right? So, right, if they're not around, am I tearing down or am I building up? And, I don't talk to my parents at the same volume that Katoya does. But only if I bring up Katoya or my kids or anything, right?
He doesn't mean actual volume.
No,
I was like, I be yelling at him.
No. Consistency, frequency.
I was like,
maybe those are different words to choose. Hey, what's up?
That sounds about accurate.
Yeah, she said hello. The kids. No. But the only thing they would tell you that I said about Katoya specifically, my spouse, they're only positives. They're only things that are encouraging and uplifting and good and so on and so forth. Now, I also have a different relationship than specifically Katoya and her parents, and even specifically Katoya and my mom. But like, so I say that also with a caveat of like, I probably, based off our relationship, wouldn't even try to go deep with my parents. It's a good relationship, but it's just not a deep. It's not going to do that type of relationship. But all that to say, like, when we're talking about with our parents, our parents, like our spouse, have a special place in our hearts, right? So, like, when you go home for the holidays and you walk into that house that you grew up in, right?
Well, your parents are protective of you.
But
so
also
you done made somebody the enemy.
But it's that, and also, like, we feel a certain way when we're around our parents. Your dialect change a little bit. Sometimes if you're in your kitchen, you feel like you're 17 again. Like it's very intriguing and unique when you're around your parents. And sometimes, right, you can kind of maybe do things and say things that you wouldn't necessarily would, right, if you felt like you're talking just peer to peer, right, your BFF who's 34 as well. And so I just all that to say, when we're talking about speaking about your spouse, it's really important for us to be mindful of what we're saying and how we're saying it in the midst of our parents. So it's really big.
It is big. And not only that, I mean, I think it's worth a bigger episode, but, you know, you also have to protect your children if you have children. That's important that you are being mindful of the way you speak about your spouse when they are with you or not around you to your children. Yeah, it can be much deeper, much bigger, but that means so much too. So we just have to protect our spouse because we love our spouse, express those well-meant intentions, and then speak positive about them when they are in our presence and not in our presence, and being thoughtful about what you're saying about your spouse and the perception or the image that you're painting of them.
Yeah, well, like, what type of perception do you want of y'all as a couple? You know
what I
mean?
like we ain't gotta lie. Like, you with this old low down dude. Like, I don't. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Like, are you always over here trying to like do impressions of your spouse? And then she came into the room, she was like, "What you want for dinner?"
No,
like,
I do that.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
And then he said,
Dana was all like,
I got another show to go to.
"All right, bro, settle down. It's your third show this week. Settle down."
And she was like, "You gonna eat that dessert?"
I'm like, "Yes, I'm gonna eat that dessert." Am I crazy, right?
Nah, fam,
She
Am I crazy, right?
She crazy, bro. You know, she know you like sweets. She knew you like sweets before you met her, right? And then you got just yes men and yes women beside you.
no good.
And it's just like, what? That ain't what I needed. I needed you to be like, no, she had a point. Okay.
Well, if y'all haven't had this conversation in your relationship, it's definitely one worth it. I touched on it earlier saying you probably found out the hard way when you had to have that conversation when you got back home. Like, don't say that. Don't laugh about that with me. Don't do that to me.
Don't bring that up.
Things are meant for private and some things are meant to be shared. But they definitely are. You need to establish that for the successfulness of evenings, dates, and the longevity of your relationship. And to establish a real good baseline of trust. Because a lot of this is
that is
trust,
the best
for
right
sure.
trust for sure. Absolutely. That's it. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found value. Got a few giggles in that thing. We appreciate y'all listening. The conversation continues over on Instagram. Follow us over there. IG. Sum it up, Sumners. Sum S-U-M. Sum it up, Sumners.
They know how to
Check
spell
it.
it because they listening.
Maybe it'll be their first time.
Yeah, but they also are listening to this podcast.
Maybe, but it could be their first time.
But they see it.
Maybe they didn't. Maybe somebody sent them a link. I was like, "What's this? Just listen." Right?
And also click the link. The link is layered. I love telling people to click a link because I spend time building the link.
It's good. It's good. We appreciate y'all. Damon Kachoya. Talk soon.
Bye.